inside and out. I hope you'll agree. So we are delighted with our continuing associations with Westport, which is very close to me. It's where my mother is from. And we are delighted that you've all come out tonight, and so many friendly faces here. So we would like to introduce, first of all, Father O Brien from Carlstrand, who's behind me. He's going to do the honours of launching this absolutely most beautiful book. So, you're welcome.
Friends, I travelled here today with Gary and Katrina from Galway, and I was very conscious for a lot of the journey that we were sort of echoing in some way the passage of St. Patrick, sort of paralleling it a little bit by Donapatrick, by Shule, by Ballintober, near the Thocher, and coming near Westport, and everywhere in the sort of approaching distance, the mountain of Patrick. And you could imagine him, as indeed I often have over the years, you could imagine him seeing it in the distance, probably utterly hooped by its shape. That Trinity obsessed, absorbed saint, hearing its silent call to ascend, I suppose, to some transcendence, maybe beyond hunger, beyond tiredness, into some vision of a world held in love by a trinity of love. A light sort of breaking the darkness, the way dawn light over Clúble Bay used to astound pilgrims in the not too distant past. St. Patrick and the community that formed in his wake, and indeed in the wake of his words, are, I honestly believe, been rediscovered completely anew in our time, in our age. Not any longer as the patron saint or the founding saint of our different churches here, and not even as some sort of nationalist emblem or something like that, but something much deeper and I think much greater. First of all, one of the great mystics of the world, really, with open to a love of a God who holds all the stars and the planets on their orbits and courses. The founder of a community, ultimately the founder of a community that is at its base extraordinarily ecological. I think that's one of the greatnesses for him today. It's impossible to read the poetry of the generations that follow Patrick, and indeed his own words, without realising how deeply ecological it was, and that it makes us one with so many other of the things that call people today, with the Amerindian tradition, obviously with the Buddhist tradition, and indeed with some of the depths of Islam as well, and so many other places as well. And there's something else as well, I think something very, very important as well. There was a deep sense in all of that of the unity we have, a deep early sense of the Gaia, of our utter dependence on one another. I think that's all quietly hidden in Patrick. And also, maybe most importantly of all, in his letter to the soldiers of Caracas, Patrick becomes, I think myself, maybe one of the first voices, not just in the church, but one of the first voices in the Western world to take a stand against slavery. Huge stand against slavery. And I think maybe today, in a world where slavery is rampant again, child labour, the sex trade, in creating stadiums for World Cups, in fishing for clams around the world, in the hospitality industry in this country as well as elsewhere. We need that clue of Patrick, I think, is becoming more important, and we can take our clue from him as well, I think. Going Up the Holy Mountain is a book of reflections that belongs deeply to that original spirit of Patrick. It's imbued with it, and more importantly, it makes it new again for the 21st century. Gary's contribution to our immersion in the spirit of Patrick reminds me, and has constantly reminded me, as indeed his whole life does, of the extraordinary contribution that Anglican people have made to that tradition in this country. I obviously think of George Otterson's, in a special way, I think, indeed, Richard Hanson. Looking at the first illustration of the first chapter of this book from Carr Island reminded me of vital visits there I had with, indeed, Richard Hanson, indeed, with Gary and with David Scott, the great Anglican poet of England, and with people, indeed, from our own tradition, like Daniel Berrigan and Tony Malley. Before that face of Christ that opens that first chapter, I think we all felt the loneliness of humanity without the embrace of a God of love. That call to unity, to peace, to mercy, to compassion, and to peace. I think this book brings us along that way, along that pilgrim way. It's written deeply, deeply with the voice of a friend. I think everyone who reads it will get the cadences of friendship and the ease of companionship and goodness. And a friend also, as I said, who plays music. The pilgrim way for us all goes, thank God, by places like Mulloy's, wayside taverns where strangers break bread, and we recognise and know that there's resurrection. In the session, not just listening, but volunteering a song maybe to Buddhists and Hindus and Americans and Sufi dancers from Islam. And those people maybe with no name or no tradition behind them, but whose eyes tell us that they're on journeys and they're bright maybe with stories to tell us of the pilgrim way and the journey. Like the bread of the preacher, the bread of Ecclesiastes, I now cast this book upon the waters. May it journey far, may it give sustenance to many, may many people hear its words, and may many people dance to its very beautiful music.